My name's Sarah Stevenson and I'm a Development Officer in the Early Careers team. And I'll just let Cecilia introduce herself.
I'm Cecilia and I work in the Early Careers team with Sarah as well.
And we're really pleased that you've taken time to join us this afternoon, and we're going to take you through the different flexible route profiles this afternoon. So what's really important for us to bear in mind that no matter which route to probation that you are following at the moment, and no matter which route on the flexible route that you are following, you are working towards demonstrating that you are working within the standard for full registration and that you have achieved standard for full registration. So as you'll be aware, the standard for full registration is split into 3 distinct sections. We have the professional values and personal commitment at the core of the standards, professional knowledge and understanding and professional skills and abilities, and professional actions. And we'll refer to these particular sections as we move through our presentation this afternoon. I'd also encourage you to look at the revised professional standards, which are currently available on the GTC website, and be able to familiarise yourselves with those as they are currently undergoing a consultation period, ready for publication next summer. So we'd encourage you to engage with those. There are 3 different types of flexible route profiles that we want to talk you through this afternoon. The first one being what we're referring to, just for distinction, as the new online profile. So those of you that have joined the flexible route since August 2020, and some of you that might have been involved in the 2019 pilot, will be using the new online profile. The second profile that we will touch on with you is the paper-based profile, which is commonly used for registration in an additional subject, and those of you who may be undertaking the flexible route outside of Scotland. And the third profile that we will explain to you this afternoon is the original online profile, and that was in force prior to August 2020. So there's 3 distinct profiles that we'll be taking you through this afternoon. So I'm going to hand over to Cecilia now, and she's going to start explaining the new online profile. So for those of you that have joined from August 2020 or were part of the 2019 pilot. Thank you, Cecilia.
Thanks, Sarah. So this is the main page of the new flexible route profile system that we've developed. As you can see, I think it's a lot more visual. We've tried to make it as much as possible reflecting on the teacher induction scheme profile, where we've included most of the sections that they need to complete throughout their probation period. You'll also be able to see that there's a pie chart, which makes it a visual picture of the progress you're making throughout your probation period. So as you start to complete days, you'll notice that that pie chart starts to show green where you've then completed the days. One of the new facilities that we've also added in is the share profile facility. So you see at the top there, it's a little share profile link, and this will allow anyone on the flexible route profile to click on that link and share the entire profile with their either new school or the school that they're just starting in. So it can be quite useful if you've changed schools, or if your mentor just wants to see an overview of your profile. One of the other main differences we've been able to do as well within the new profile system is add sort of dual qualifications that you've got. So if you are registered in more than one subject, your online profile will be able to manage both profile systems on the same account, and you can sign off both subjects as you go along as well. Just moving on to the next section, it's the initial professional development action plan, which often gets referred to as IPDAP. This is something that most probationers usually will start off on the induction scheme from their ITE profile. So if you've done a course, your PGD course through a Scottish university, and you've done the ITE profile with the university, usually what would happen is that would get transferred over to the TIS profiles, but with our new flexible route profile system, we've able to pull that information across to help you guys out. If you haven't come from a Scottish university and you have a blank initial professional development action plan, you can start this when you start in a school. It's really just looking over your main focus areas that you want to develop on and putting together an action plan in place for that. We usually advise 2 records in each of the 3 areas for meeting the standards. So you can see the 3 areas there, and ideally we would look for 2 action points and targets to be completed for each of the 3 sections. Moving on to the next section, it's recording observations. So we've now got a separate section where you can record your observations within any school. So it's really just entering the date, the local authority, the school that you took place, the name of the member that observed you. It does have supporting head teacher, but if it has been a deputy head or anything like that, just pop the name in there, that's completely fine, as well as the start and end date. You would just save that and submit that for sign off once you've added in that record of service. Moving on to the next section, it's the professional learning, also previously known as the CPD. You'll get a table on the new flexible route profile where you can quite clearly see a framework of all your professional learning that you record. And at the top, you would just click add a professional learning entry into your profile record, and it allows you to select what type of professional learning it's been, whether it's been within the school, a personal activity, or with possibly the local authority as well. Ideally, we would look for about 9 professional learning records throughout your entire probation period, and you can work with the school and the local authority in order to build those up as well. The next section is supporting meetings. On the flexible route, supporter meetings are not as such a requirement in order to meet the standards and to sign off for full registration. However, we do advise if you've had any meetings with a supporter or members within the school, just to record them within your profile, as it would make it a lot more in depth and show the detail that you've put in there. And again, you just record details such as the date, authority, the name of who you've had the meeting with, the key focus 1 and 2, and the agreed actions. And again, you would just save that and you would be able to share that with your supporter for them to view that and just agree that what's been put in it is correct. The next section is records of teaching service. So this part is where it can get a bit difficult, but just as long as you know what you're doing within the records of service, it's quite easy. So at the top there, you've got where you would record the local authority and the subject that's within. So if it is in your area of registration, you would put yes to subject. If it's been sort of covering classes or possibly within an ASN setting or possibly even nursery if you're primary registered, that would all fall under no, it's not in your subject and go towards the 45% you would be entitled to throughout your probation period on the flexible route. So when you record your service, you can record it in 3 different ways. The first one is a date range, which you can see here. So that's putting in, say for example, you've worked the first term within a school. So you can put the start and end date to be the term, start of the term and end of the term. And what the system will do is calculate the days for you, how many days have took place. It will have a part-time option built into the system as well. So if you've worked the full term but you've only worked 3 days a week, it'll allow you to put in the part-time option of a 0.6 week for that, and it will also automatically calculate for that for you so that you can just save the record and add that in and submit it to your mentor to get signed off. The next sort of way that you can record that is by selecting multiple dates. So you can see in sort of the next picture there, it's got multiple dates selected, and this is mainly useful if you're doing supply work or if you're doing sort of ad hoc days every week, and you just need to select a couple of dates in each sort of record to show the days. It's not quite part-time, same hours every week. You're just doing it a day here and day there, and it helps you record that sporadically. Again, you just save and submit to your supporter. The last option in which you can record your record of service is by monthly blocks. So if you just do work the month of July within a school, for example, you can select the month July in the year 2020, and what the system will do again is calculate all the days for you. You can save that record and submit it to your submit it to your supporter for sign off. Just to note, once you've added the record and you saved it, you go back into the record of service section, and you'll see next to each individual record of service you've added, you'll be able to submit that to the school for sign off. On to the next section, it's your professional development action plan. So again, this is similar to your additional professional action plan, and this is a PDAP, but this is usually done towards the end of your probation period, when you start to look at the overall progress you've made, any areas you still need to sort of develop on. This would be the action plan you would put in place for going ahead into your first year into your teaching career. And again, we'd ideally look for around 2 in each of the 3 sections, just to make sure that you've got a good action plan in place for moving forward. The next section is the key strengths and development areas. So this is actually for your supporter or whoever's mentoring you within the school to fill out. What they would do is you would have observations with the school, you would have possibly meetings with the school where you would identify obviously the key strengths and areas for development. And what the supporter within the school will do is start to put together the table there for you to be able to clearly identify the areas that you may need to develop on. This also helps put together your action plan, your professional development action plan at the end of your probation period, as you can use the development areas from this to build the action plan off of. Just to note as well before we move off for that section is that after 45 days in a teaching school, you will get alerted from the system that that needs to be completed, so you can then chase that up with your supporter to then fill out that information. Then on to sort of the final section, it's submitting your profile. So what will happen, you'll see this little taskbar appear when you've met all the criteria and that you've filled out everything and have everything signed off on your profile. A little link will appear asking you to submit the profile for recommendation. You can also share the profile beforehand if they want to just maybe see an overview of this, but potentially just at the end of that, you would just click on the submit profile for recommendation. It usually goes to the head teacher within the school and they would sign it off for either full registration, extension or cancellation, and that will automatically go through to our database.
Thank you, Cecilia. I've got a rather sensitive mouse, so apologies that was moving the slides on slightly faster than you were speaking there. It's just been a little bit oversensitive. So just want to take an opportunity to just pause a moment, give you the opportunity, if you want to note down any questions that you would like to ask at the end, or if indeed that about the new online profile, if you want to put any sections and questions in the chat about any of the sections, then we can start to collate those. But we will just shortly move on to the paper-based profile. So just give you a moment to gather any questions together that you might have based on what you've heard so far. So moving on to the paper-based profiles, really there are 2 groups of flexible route probationers that tend to use the profiles, the paper-based profiles, and one of them is anybody completing the flexible route out with Scotland. So the online ones are only if you're working within Scotland, so if you're out with Scotland, and also if you're adding an additional subject area to your registration. So for example, if you're already registered in French and you were adding Spanish to your registration, you will have gone through the process of applying for professional registration with our professional registration team, and they will give you a number of days that you have to work in that particular subject area. And that is recorded on the final report. What the slide that you're seeing in front of you at the moment is a screenshot from our Into Teaching website, where you can download any of the paper-based reports. On the right-hand side, you'll see them in Word document form and in PDF form. So I'm just going to take you through the different pages of, for example, a full final report. They're very similar, but I'll just take you through a final report at this stage. So on the front page, you have space to record all of your personal details, and this is the page where the head teacher would sign off to say whether you've got a recommendation for full registration, an extension to provisional registration, or recommendation of cancellation. Now, when you're sending us any paper reports at the end of your probation period, at the moment we're accepting those electronically in a scanned format to the PLD address, which we'll share with you at the end of the presentation, the email address. It's really important that when you scan any paper documentation that we can see original signatures on any of the forms where indicated. So just to highlight that to you. There's a section to record your timetable and any work that you might be doing with other stages. This is a primary example. The secondary timetable obviously looks just slightly different in the secondary final report. There's a page for you to record your teaching service, just in a very similar way that you would have seen Cecilia explaining on the online form. And then records of meetings with supporter. The spaces, obviously, if you're using the Word version, will expand as you need them to, but it might just be that you want to just take briefer notes in the final profile, and then obviously you'll have that backed up with documentation and evidence for your own reference. Again, there's space for probationer and supporter signatures. It's very important that we see original signatures if you are scanning that to us. On the same sheet there, you'll also see records of observed teaching. The requirements are not any different. It's just obviously you have the opportunity to record those in a paper format as well. So you can record also your continued professional learning. Again, same requirements in terms of a minimum amount of professional learning that we would expect to see. And then completed by the head teacher when they are ready to recommend you for registration. So you've completed your number of days in the school, and you're moving towards gaining your full registration. This needs to be completed by the head teacher. And again, if you're using a Word version, that information can be typed in. The shot on the left is actually an extension of that report, and then we've also got the PDAP, the Professional Development Action Plan. Again, that would be completed in conjunction with the head teacher and signed off by the head teacher. So you would need to complete that for the recommendation of full registration on the paper-based profiles. You can, of course, send your paper copies to us by post, but at the moment, please be advised that we have restricted opening in our offices. Therefore, we would recommend that at the moment that you scan those and send those to us with the original signatures to the PLD inbox. Again, I'd just like to invite you to take a moment if you need to think about any questions that you would like to ask us at the end based on the paper-based profile, or indeed anything on the online profile that Cecilia covered at the beginning. And in a moment, we'll move on to explaining the older version of the online profile. So any of you that might have an online profile prior to August 2020. Thanks, Cecilia.
Thanks, Sarah. So as you can see on this page, at the top half of the page is the overview of the older online profile, and as you can kind of see, it's a lot less information that's looks like it's required. It's just got the main 3 sections there: CPD, the Professional Development Action Plan, and Recording Service, and it's just got the profile progress there. So it is slightly different. Don't worry if you don't see the main initial Professional Development Action Plan. That wasn't an option within the old profile. However, with the observations and meetings, you can record them within the Record of Service section, which I'll touch on in just a moment. Just at the bottom half of the page, you can see the professional learning records. On the older profile, this is referred and named as the CPD records, so just in case you get confused with that. But again, this allows you to add in the start date and end date of your professional learning record, whether it was school, local authority or personal, as well as the key focus and activity. And again, you would just add that into you would add that in and save that to your record, and you'd be able to view them. These don't get signed off individually on the old profile. However, you can use the print icon and share a PDF version with your supporter if they would like to see a copy as well. And again, we would ideally look for around 9 professional learning records throughout your probation period. On to the next section is the record of service stage. So this is slightly different in regards to, there's only sort of 2 ways you'd be able to record your service at the moment on the older profile, and that is either full-time service, which you can see on the left-hand side. What you would enter is obviously the local authority, the school, your start and end date. What the system will do is automatically calculate how many actual working days is complete during this time, and then you have the option to select full-time, as well as whether it's in your subject or whether it's out with your subject. The percentage of teaching time in subject, what we tend to advise is that you always put 100% on this, because you get the facility to enter whether it's part-time as well. If you keep the 100%, it will just calculate 100% of the full-time or part-time service. If you do amend that, what the system will try and do is work a percentage of either your part-time or full-time basis, which isn't always what you're trying to look for. Where it might be easier if you do record a part-time service, which you can see on the right-hand side, you would just put in the start end date. Again, the system will calculate how many actual teaching days have been within that period. You can see there's an option to select part-time. And for example, if you've worked 1 day a week or 2 days a week, you can put a 0.4, which is the equivalent to that, and you can see calculated working days is then automatically again calculated to meet how many days you've met in that period. And again, just if it's in your subject or if it's another, and 100% teaching time. One thing I would advise is if you are on the old profile system, just be aware that if you are teaching in both your subject and out of subject, these need to be recorded in separate records of service, just so that you make sure that you're credited in both days within the areas that they should be credited within. The next section is your professional development action plan. So again, it's similar to the one that we have on the new profile system. You can add in the area that you're working towards for the standards. We'd ideally look for 2 in each of the 3 sections for a target and an action required, and you'd be able to save that onto your record. You would need to have an action plan in place before you submit for full registration. Just underneath that, you can see is the observed record of teaching. So if you get observed in a school, again, you would record it within the record of service page. Just to note that this is found within the record of service that you've undertook the observation. So for example, if it was taken the first term and you've got a record from August to October break, you would click view within that record and then add the observation meeting there. You can see just at the bottom, you can see the add record of observation or add record of support meeting, and to the right you'll see there all the details that are required for your observation, so you can select the class, the level of study and the key focus and add that in. The next section is the support meeting. So again, that's found within the record of service, and it's similar to what we have on our new profile system. In regards to the data, you would just put the date of the meeting, the key focus and the agreed action plan. Just to note that when you do add in a record of service that is more than 20 days, the system will recognise that, and it will require an observation for anything over 20 days to allow you to sign that off. So if you have entered any records of service and it's not coming up with a submit for sign off link, it does mean you need to go within that record of service and add any observations that took place over that period of time. But again, support meetings are not such a requirement, but we do advise you to record them if you have had any at all throughout your probation period. And finally, the last step is the submit for recommendation, and it's similar in the sense that once you have met the three main sections within the profile, so you've met all your records of service with observations, you've got the action plan and recorded your professional learning, a link will appear asking you to submit the profile for recommendation, where again you'll enter the email address of usually your head teacher, who'll get access to that and sign it off. And the little sort of screenshot there you've got there is what your profile will look like during the process of you getting that signed off, and then obviously recommended in this case on the screenshot for full registration, and it'll tell you of the recommendation there also. And that is it for the old profile system.
Thank you, Cecilia. Just going to turn my camera back on. So one thing that we wanted to really excitedly let you know about is the virtual school that we'll be launching on Monday. You'll receive some communication from us in the next day or so, letting you know how you can access the virtual school. But one thing that we're very aware of at GTC Scotland and in the early careers team where the virtual school is hosted is that because of the nature of the flexible route, we recognise that some days you may not be in school, some days you may be in different schools, and sometimes accessing that sense of community and professional learning and just general support sometimes just is a little bit more tricky. So what we've tried to do is to pull together a support package for you on an online platform that you'll all get access to, and we would encourage you at some point next week to come and log in and see the virtual school itself and come and start to engage with the resources and support that we're putting together. We're going to be adding to these resources and supports on a very regular basis, so we would love you to become familiar with how to access it next week and get to know the team that will be supporting you through the virtual school. We're really excited. We've been working really hard in the background to generate some super resources to help you out. Based on a lot of the queries that we get, we understand a number of the concerns and the questions that come up from flexible route probationers. So we're trying really hard to provide a really comfortable community space for you to come and get some additional help and be able to also access some really useful information that will help you whilst you're on your flexible route journey. So we really look forward to welcoming you to our virtual space, our virtual school next week, and on Monday that will launch, and we can't wait to hear your feedback and get ideas for additional materials that we can develop that you feel that would support you, and yeah, just really looking forward to engaging with every single one of you on the flexible route and helping you along your journey to achieving full registration. So a huge welcome to all of you, because you will all be part of that and have access to that platform, as I say, at the beginning of next week on Monday. And watch out on Twitter, we'll be promoting it as well. So you're all very welcome, and we are all extremely excited about launching that facility for you on Monday. I'm just going to move on to the questions now, and I hope that Kirsty and Cecilia will be able to see if any of you have asked some questions. We've got a good amount of time, so if anybody would like to ask any questions specifically about the profiles, that would be really helpful, and we will do our best to answer those for you. I'm just going to change the screen onto the next one, because also on the next slide, you've got our contact details on there as well. So if you're wanting to email us, most of you will know by now that you can find us at pld@gtcs.org.uk. Sorry, that that very sensitive mouse keeps changing things. Do apologise. Can you see that, Kirsty? Okay, it's
yeah.
Yeah,
can see
that's
the
fine.
contact details
Super.
there, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so do we have any questions?
We have lots of questions.
Excellent.
So
right.
Thanks everyone. So I think we'll just start at the beginning if that's okay with yourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had someone who just joined us late, but it's always good to just clarify things. So they're asking, is the part-time option available now because they had to fill in multiple dates for part-time working in one school, a total of 27 entries?
Okay, so for the new profile system, the part-time option isn't available under multiple dates, but what we would advise just in the meantime is that you would select the days that you do within the week in one record of service. So you just add a record, select multiple dates, select the dates within that term that you have worked. Understandably, this would be selecting a couple dates. It is in our development to get the part-time option available as soon as possible, and it will be ready within the sort of hopefully the next few weeks. Just in the meantime, you will need to select that multiple date option.
Thank you. And so someone has a question about working supply, but they're on a continuous long-term basis. So are they better to update their record on a monthly basis?
So if you are working in supply, you can record them in termly blocks just as full-time service, or alternatively monthly blocks, really whatever is best for your current situation. But you can just select date range and just put the start and end of the time that you work there, preferably in termly blocks, and that will keep that in one record for you.
So someone is looking to clarify a teacher from a different country who is going on the flexible route and begins IPTAP, then progress to PD. Even I can't get my head around all the different abbreviations. I don't know if you're able to see that question, Cecilia, that I'm referring to.
Yeah, I've got it here. So I think they're asking. So the IPTAP is for the start of your probation period. So when you start within, as soon as you're sort of starting your probation, what are the key focuses you want to look at? Possibly if you've identified from either university, or you can sit down with the school, maybe talk about what you think the initial development areas are you need to work on. That brings up the initial development action plan. You've asked there, where would you then put the professional development action plan, and that's usually towards the end of your probation period. So when you're coming to almost finishing your days and things, you would look over your key strengths and development areas, and if you felt that there was any areas for development that you could still work on in that first year of your fully registered teaching, you'd put that in your professional development action plan going forward.
Great, thank you. Coming back to the sort of part-time and full-time here, so someone's asking on their supply, they haven't seen a part of full-time option for recording on their profile.
Okay, so if you're on the new profile system, again, you would just enter a record of service selecting date range. That will allow you to select sort of a full-time basis between the start and end date. The system will automatically calculate that for you. Alternatively, you can select multiple dates just until our part-time system is available, but the multiple dates would allow you to go week by week and select the days that you have worked throughout that.
Great. Someone's asking how often should a profile be submitted for sign-off? Is it after 45 days or is it at the end of the year?
Okay, so on the flexible route, you only get one profile. You're either doing it online or paper-based, unless you have went out of the UK or out of Scotland and you need to use a paper-based form to record service that you've done outside of Scotland. But usually you would do one or the other. And what would then happen is, on the online system, you would have the record of service section. after you've done a record of service within a school, or after you've done a termly block, you would add that in and sign that off at that point. So you just sign them off as you are going along, and after 45 days of being within a school, you'll get an alert to say that your key strengths and development areas are required, but you can still submit your records of service as you go along. And once all the days and everything has been signed off, you'll be able to submit the entire profile for recommendation.
Great, thank you. Someone's just asking, I think they've had a 2018 online profile, and they're wondering if and when that will be updated.
So anyone on the old profile system, unless you are part of the pilot sort of cohort, you'll be sort of remaining on the old profile system. We have found that moving old profiles to the new ones can erase records and may not pull across all the information you would like. So we do strongly advise to stay on the old profile system, and it is getting phased out over a 5-year period. So hopefully after that 5 years, everybody will then be using the old profile system rather than the old one. But we need that sort of phase out time period to do so. If they want, we can put them onto the new profile system, but like I said, it can hold the potential of you losing information and possible days not being credited. So we do advise just to remain on the old system for now.
Great. I think we had a couple of other people asking a similar question, so that's great. So this person has a full-time temporary contract with the school, so they're just asking about how to fill out their record of service. I think a few other people have asked quite similar questions to that already.
Okay, so at the moment, if you are working full-time in a school and you plan to obviously be working there for quite a long time, at the moment we would advise you to record them in termly blocks and just put the date range from the start of the term to the end of the term. Save that as a termly block, and you'll be able to submit that, and it would credit all the days as a full-time basis. We will be looking to sort of phase out within our developments that are ongoing is that the option if you are working full-time continuous in one school, where you can have the days reduced from 270 to 190, is that the system will recognise this. However, it's not in place at the moment, so you will, if you just enter it in termly blocks, it will calculate all the days for you and sign off correctly as well.
Great. So I think a few people were just wanting to sort of clarify in terms of having paper forms as well as the online profile. So this person's asking about working outside of the country. This is in the paper forms would be used. So I think we just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, so if you're teaching in Scotland, we usually advise just always use the online profile system, whether it's the old profile or the new profile. However, if you are teaching in England or anywhere other abroad, you would need to have a paper-based record. And this is purely for the fact that if you are teaching outside of Scotland, it's likely that your mentor in the school won't have access to our GTS system. So you will need to complete a paper form and send it to us. But that would be the only time we would ask for that additional paper report. If you're using the online system, I would just advise sticking to it, staying on that. You wouldn't need to also provide a paper report. It's only if you are going to be teaching outside of Scotland and need that service credited to your probation period.
And could I just add in there, Kirsty, just to reiterate the fact that scanning paper copies at the moment and sending them to the PLD box is by far the most convenient way with the limited access that we have to the office. So just to reiterate that from the message that we gave on the paper-based profile section.
Thanks, Sarah. So just having a look at the questions here. We have a few people who are working on dual qualifications, just looking for some help from their perspective. So I think they have the new online profile or are speaking about the new online profile, working on dual qualifications and putting in your days. And they've asked, do they click no for the second subject as in subject?
So if you've got the new profile system and you've got an additional area of qualification and you're using an online profile, you would record in subject. It's only if that, so you got your probation profile and it will state the subject at the top as to what profile that's relating to. So for example, primary, and it will state that within your profile. So if it's out with primary, for example, ASN or nursery, you would click other to record that.
Thanks, Cecilia. Still got some great questions coming in. It's just trying to decide where to start. We have someone who's actually asked 3 separate questions, so I will try and ask them separately just to give you guys the chance to answer. The first one is about the revised professional standards when they come into effect, if they come into effect while someone's still completing their probation. How will this affect the profile and the standards that they have to meet?
So the revised standards, assuming that they are ratified by council in December, and then there'll be a period of enactment where teachers will become familiar with the new standards, but there's not so much, that the sections have not changed within, the 3 sections have not changed within the new standards. So you will still be able to engage in those 3 distinct sections in terms of recording targets and everything. So really the standards, the language of the standards has been refined, and they are, in our opinion, a lot easier to engage with. So I think, if anything, you'll find it easier to engage with the new standards than the current ones. So you shouldn't have any, there shouldn't be any implications in terms of recording new and old information, because the 3 core areas will still remain in terms of your profile.
Thank you. So the next question that this person's asked is about the type of CPD that they can do. So they've asked, does it matter if they did more personal CPD that they maybe sought out themselves, rather than CPD that's been set up by the school or the local authority?
No, that's absolutely fine. So all professional learning is valid. We would just advise that you try and make that as relevant as possible to the context that you are working within. So whether that's some subject specific things, or whether you have developed a particular interest in an area of ASN in the classroom, for example, and you want to undertake some personal research, it doesn't always have to be what the school or the local authority have directed. It's good to see a mixture of all those opportunities, and through the virtual school we'll also be providing more professional learning opportunities for you as we go. So do check in there as of Monday and access some of those resources with guides to professional reading, for example. Those are all self-directed and personal learning as well. So lots of opportunities that would count towards your professional learning. Cecilia, can you access the next question?
I can. Let me have a wee look. So someone's working in the same school full-time for a year, and they're submitting records of service for each term by your supporter. So yeah, that's correct. What we would advise, if you are working in the same school full-time, if you do just enter them in termly blocks and submit them as you're going along. If you are entitled to that 190 days reduction, just give us an email and we'll just make sure your profile's up to date. When our developments start to come out again, we will have that as an automatic recognition on the system, so it'll recognise that for you as well. So someone's arrived a little late, but if their personal details and the development areas are missing from the profile, do I just add these in manually myself again, or would I need to contact someone about that? What I would advise, so in regards to the personal details, we are moving over from an old system to a new system, and there is a delay with the personal details being transferred across, but that's in hand with our developers, so you don't need to worry about that section. but if you want for your professional development action plan, your initial one, if the information hasn't transferred across, I would definitely either copy and paste that from your ITE, or you can make that from fresh with your school if you haven't got an ITE profile. So I've got one, my mentor cannot sign off the observation lessons or the IPTAP progress. She shared the profile, however they cannot access it. In some cases we have noticed that the link isn't particularly working that well when you have submitted, especially when you have shared the profile with your nomination. So if you're having difficulties with that, just get in contact with us and we'll have a look into that for you. But if you do share the profile, just to note that doesn't actually give them the facility to sign off records. You do need to submit that for sign off, but if you are having difficulties viewing it through the shared facility, do let us know and we'll look into that for you.
Sorry about that, everyone.
That's okay. Cecilia's doing a great job of reading and
yeah, we're just near the end as well there. Do you want me to just answer couple more?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we do have a lot of questions and we don't want to keep people sort of hanging on for hours tonight. So what we usually do is we just take a note of any questions that haven't been answered. They're all attributed to people, so if they're a bit more personal, we can get back to you all individually. But we do try to sort of have an FAQ style document along with the recording and the presentation, which will be made available on it into teaching by early next week.
I've just got a little update coming from the office as well in terms of the standards. Elaine, our Senior Strategic Manager, has just clarified for us that anybody that's currently working, current probationers working with the current professional standards, you will continue to use the 2012 version for the duration of your flexible route probation. So just to clarify that, as it's different to what I had said before. So if you are currently a probationer, you will stick with the 2012 version of the standards, okay? But please don't let that put you off having a look at the ones that are available for consultation on the website at the moment.
Yeah, and if you do want to feedback on those, the closing date is is Tuesday, the 6th of November, and we do value feedback from everybody on those standards. Just as an extra plug there for that.
So I'll just quickly answer. There was a question just asking how many observations should be completed. So we do advise a minimum of 6 observations throughout that 270-day probation period. We strongly advise if you can get one every 20 days or every 2 to 3 weeks, that's great. But a minimum of 6 throughout your probation period would allow you to continue meeting the standards.
All right, well, thank you to Sarah and Cecilia and to everyone who's joined us tonight. As I say, we're going to take these questions that are still sitting there. Someone's just asked just now where on the Into Teaching website the webinar will be. And if you go onto the Into Teaching website, there's a flexible route tab. If you just click on that tab, and then there's a menu at the side, and it should be on the What is the Flexible Route page. You can also follow us on Twitter at GTCS, and I'll be posting a link to it there as well. And you can also get in touch with us if you're unable to find it, and we'll point you in the right direction.
And I think Kirsty will also have a link available in the virtual school as of Monday for everybody, or as soon as it's available, to be able to view as well. So
yeah, this webinar is a part of a series that we've been doing. So there might be some other webinars available there that you'll find helpful as well. But yeah, like I say, thank you to Sarah and Cecilia for hosting the webinar this evening, and thank you to everyone for joining. And yeah, I hope you have a great evening. Do keep an eye out on the Into Teaching website, as well as the GTCS events page, because that's where we'll be putting all the information of upcoming webinars that might be helpful to you on your probationary journey.